be expecting a more established lineup from MrLEGO. So I'm guessing Priest, Druid, Rogue, and possibly Shaman.
And you're right on that accord in terms of Rogue, because we've jumped into the game and we're seeing a Rogue mirror match here to kick things off, which is super, super exciting.
Here we go. So neither player has banned Rogue, of course. Look at that. My BattleNet is freezing up nicely. So we'll soon be into the game. Rogue has really taken a leap in popularity after the nerf patch. So it's not surprising that both players are playing it. Rogue is a possible ban for either player, but I'm guessing they've probably banned each other's Priest. Or maybe even Druid, but probably Priest. MrLEGO has the coin, which is always something you want when you're playing the Rogue mirror. Well, it's always something you want when you're playing Rogue, period, to be honest. And his looks like Gyatso has led game one without play on turn one, whereas MrLEGO has managed to play Swashbuckler and get a patches out and go in face. Gyatso, of course,
MrLEGO has a very compelling hand here. He consisting of Edwin Van Cleef and 2 Shadow Steps, among other things.
Yes, there's going to be a big Edwin at some point. Now, that sounds unbeatable. But these days, Rogue plays a lot of Vastbind Slayers, so you're going to have to hope that Gyatso... I can see that Gyatso also has his own Edwin Van Cleef, just not as many enablers. He has a Backstab, an SI7 Agent, a Cold Blood, and a South Sea Deckhand, so we could be seeing a reasonably sized Edwin coming out of Gyatso as well. He's just instead chosen to play the Tempo SI7 Agent. Now, that means he hasn't comboed it out. He's just played it as a 3-3. He didn't need the extra 2 damage. Oh my goodness me.
Okay, MrLEGO has picked up Prince Callister.
Oh no. So let's have a look here. Well, it looks like so people talk about this being the nastiest thing you can see on the ladder is Prince Callister, Shadow Step it, Prince Callister, Shadow Step it, Prince Callister, and then the rest of your deck has +3/+3. MrLEGO, I think correctly, has actually decided that is not the play he's going to go with this turn. He's played the second Swashbuckler. He's Shadow Stepped that twice, and then played his coin and played a 14/14 Edwin Van Cleef. You know what's better than giving the rest of your deck +3/+3? Giving a minion in play +12/+12.
Yeah, just finishing the game.
Well, I don't know that's going to finish the game, because it looks like the card that Gyatso has drawn this turn is a Vastbind Slayer, and he has a Backstab in hand, so he's going to be able to take it out. So Gyatso, he's played a South Sea Deckhand, getting out patches, which happily traded with Lego's Swashbuckler. He played a 4/4 Edwin Van Cleef, because 4/4 will do nicely. I mean, the next turn he's going to be able to backstab something, and then Vastbind Slayer. Now, interestingly enough, MrLEGO has gone face for 14. I wondered if there was any merit in maybe daggering down that South Sea Deckhand, eating Edwin Van Cleef with the 14/14 Edwin Van Cleef, so that you knew that backstab couldn't enable a Vastbind Slayer. But you know, I guess he knew he wanted to play Prince Callister, so that the backstab was going to be able to hit Callister anyway. And it looks like we're going to see quite the swing turn from Gyatso here. Oh, he's wow emoting. He's wow emoting at MrLEGO. He's backstabbed Callister. He's played a Vastbind Slayer to take out the 14/14 Edwin Van Cleef. And then he goes for face with his 3/3 SI7 Agent and the 4/4 Edwin Van Cleef, putting MrLEGO to 18. So while we saw a 14/14 Edwin Van Cleef on turn 3, it's now gone from the board, and even though Gyatso is on 11 life, he is facing down 10 attacker minions from... Gyatso has 10 attacker minions facing down MrLEGO there, and MrLEGO could be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, I think he may be in a bit of trouble, and I think perhaps the Van Cleef attacking for 14, there was an acknowledgement of, if my opponent does have Vilespine on turn 5, and again a backstab or Shadow Step to kind of proc the Vilespine, then so be it. But if he doesn't, I instantly win the game. So we're seeing the repercussions of the choice to not play around a particular card.
Absolutely. And so while it looks like you could say that MrLEGO made a poor choice, I think MrLEGO was just playing the odds. The odds are that there won't be a Vastbind Slayer there.
Alongside a backstab, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It had to be a backstab or a Shadow Step. Or actually a counterfeit coin. If you saw Amnesiac's deck list that he won the rat race with earlier this week, he was playing more Elemental Rogue. People have started sort of trading in the Shadow Steps for counterfeit coin. So there are a few cards that he could be playing that could enable him to do that. But of course, as you say, he was just banking on that not happening, and that Edwin Van Cleef would be able to close the game out in 2 attacks, making sure to reduce the number of draw steps that Gyatso had to draw the card he needed. Gyatso has just drawn a second Bone Mare. He had one in hand. He's chosen to play the one off the top. Now, I think that's an interesting decision, because if MrLEGO doesn't know that there's a Bone Mare currently in Gyatso's hand, all he saw him play was the one he drew off the top, and that maybe is a little bit of a psychological thing to try and tilt MrLEGO. I don't know. I think MrLEGO is probably an accomplished enough player that he knows not to take that seriously and say, it's fine, I was already losing on board. Like, I think I lost when he had the Vilespine Slayer and the Enabler, and that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, and that's how it is. And Gyatso taking a very quick game line there on the back of the Vilespine Slayer. And as you say, those massive Edwin Van Cleefs actually do have some more significant weaknesses now compared to the rogue builds of perhaps earlier this year or even 2016.
That's right. It's very interesting that you can see a 14-14 Edwin come down, and that player still lose quite convincingly. So we see here MrLEGO's opening hand in game 2. He did throw away a South Sea Captain, a Cold Blood, and a Blaze Caller. So he is in fact playing the more elemental version of Tempo Rogue. And Gyatso is now playing his Priest, which means, I guess, that MrLEGO did not ban Priest from Gyatso. Maybe he banned Druid? Who knows?
Yeah, you have to wonder. I mean, we don't have access to the lineups just yet, so we're not sure what LEGO strategy revolves around, but he must have been anticipating that he's going to beat this deck, so I find that super interesting.
Yeah, me too. So what's interesting here is that MrLEGO passed up playing a South Sea deckhand on turn 1. It would have pulled Patches out of his deck, it would have gotten for 1, but knowing that his opponent was playing Priest, and Priest will most definitely either try and keep or mulligan for a Potion of Madness, that would have dealt with that entirely. So I think he's deciding to keep the South Sea deckhand for a turn where he can actually leverage that a little more. Gyatso has played his own Tar Creeper, and MrLEGO has played his own Tar Creeper after playing his own Firefly and Flame Elemental. MrLEGO is going to be able to play a Tolvir Stone Shaper with Elemental Synergy on turn 4, which is going to help him, but he does have a 3/7 Tar Creeper that he's going to need to get through first. I'm guessing he's going to want to draw a Vilespine Slayer sometime soon, and that's where the South Sea deckhand will come in handy to enable that. Whereas Gyatso is getting to do his plan, which is playing a Gnomish Inventor to keep drawing through his deck so he can turn on his Raza the Chained combo along with Anduin, Shadow Reaper Anduin. But of course, here we see from MrLEGO, oh, this is nice. He's played a Swashbuckler that he drew off the top. That enabled the combo on Cold Blood. That's made his Tolvir Stone Shaper into a 7/5 Divine Shield Taunt. That meant it could eat the Tar Creeper without losing anything but the Divine Shield and opening the way for the rest of his minions to come through. And then he got to finish off the turn with a nice 6/6 Edwin Van Cleef. Now, 6/6 Edwin Van Cleef isn't too spectacular or flashy, but it is big enough that it won't die to Dragonfire Potion, and it does demand something like a Shadow of Death, which we can see that Gyatso is holding to try and take that out. Of course, having a 7/5 Tolvir Stone Shaper means he now has 2 minions that he'd want to remove with that. It looks like Gyatso has also drawn the Dragonfire Potion, so while he's facing down a very large board from MrLEGO, I'm thinking he's going to want a he's going to want a Shadow Word Death that Edwin Van Cleef. There's the Shadow Word Death taking out Edwin Van Cleef. He's going to hope to survive this turn so that he can clear the rest of the board with a Dragonfire Potion next turn. The question is, how much damage does he take in the process? And then he's finishing his turn, healing himself up to 28, and we'll see what damage MrLEGO can do. All right, MrLEGO has a 1/5 Tar Creeper, a couple of Fireflies, a couple of 1/1 Pirates, and a 7/5 Stone Shaper. So he can get in for 9, 10, 11, 12 damage, which will drop Gyatso to 16. So it's not exactly lethal. Looks like he's daggering up, knowing full well that he's going to a turn where he may get Dragonfire Potioned, and not devoting the South Sea deckhand to the board. He has a Binding Heal in hand, which he got from the Swashbuckler, which isn't particularly useful, and he has a Shadow Step. Looks like he's Shadow Stepping Patches. I like this play. I'm betting you he passes the turn without playing the Patches. Yes, he does. So, Gyatso is going to Dragonfire Potion to clear the board, which he needs to do. That 7/5 Tolvir Stone Shaper is a threat. What MrLEGO is going to be able to do is play Patches for 0 mana and then Bone Marrow it up straight away, giving him a couple of 5/5s, one of which is attacking right now, yesterday even, and that'll knock Gyatso down to 10 health, leaving him with a couple of 5/5s. Gyatso is not even got enough mana to be able to play Shadow Reaper Anduin to take them down, and I think this is the kind of play that MrLEGO needed to do to capitalize on this.
This is a fantastic play because MrLEGO would have actively identified that the way his board gets cleared is Dragonfire Potion, and he would be thinking, how can I rebuild from that board? We Shadow Step the Patches, make it 0 mana, and again, we can put 10 power back onto board the immediate turn, and again, like you said, we're short a turn of Shadow Reaper Anduin, so with my opponent having used Shadow Word Death, it looks like we're going to be able to kill him before he can clear our board. It's absolutely perfect way to manage your resources, play around the only card that clears your entire board. And it's just a, I guess, testament to MrLEGO's knowledge of the Priest deck and knowing what threats they have and what they have to lower your ceiling. You've seen a death, you've seen a potion, you know an Anduin may or may not come on 8, so he's chosen the play that can weave in and out of all of those threats, and pretty much give him enough damage to close out the game.
He clearly has played this match enough to have the experience to know the sweet points of where he's going to be falling to other things. You and I know that Gyatso does not have a Shadow Reaper Anduin in hand, but of course MrLEGO doesn't know that. Now Gyatso has I forgot what it's called. There it is. It is called Master Spell to make the patches back a 1/1. Then he's played Potion of Madness to steal it and run it into the Bone Mare just to mitigate some of the damage. He's then healed himself up to 11. MrLEGO's just played the Southsea Deckhand, the Cold Blood he's drawn off the top, and that's given him lethal to attack in. But even if that wasn't quite enough, he was still putting a lot of pressure on Gyatso, and was going to be able to close out the game before Gyatso could get far. We know that the Priest deck, the Kazakis Priest deck, basically wants to draw as many of its cards as it can to set up that Raza the Chained combo following and Shadow Reaper Anduin. And the way that you're going to beat that is by playing around those key turns where it can play Dragonfire Potion, which MrLEGO did, and making sure you can play enough pressure before you can get those combos online. We saw that Gyatso had Raza in hand. It's a fantastic card to get down. It's a 5/5 that would contest the opposing 5/5s. But of course, MrLEGO had applied enough pressure that Gyatso couldn't even afford to play it. He was having to defend too hard to be able to get it in play, and that was what he needed to push that matchup over the finish line. So that's one each now. We'll wait to see what decks they're going to choose next.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think that was really well played.
It's interesting. The elemental version of Tempo Rogue is a little less favoured against Kazakis Priest than a regular one is. It's better in the mirror. So you can see that would be why MrLEGO was choosing to leave Rogue up, but I'm not sure why he did not ban the Priest, unless he was thinking that he wanted to ban Jade Druid. And we see here that MrLEGO is starting this game with his Jade Druid, which I'm guessing means that Gyatso probably banned MrLEGO's Priest, and MrLEGO, I'm thinking, banned Gyatso's Jade Druid.
Yeah, I think that would be an accurate assessment. I find it interesting that MrLEGO's Jade Druid actually kind of escaped the ban. I know that the Priest may seem like the tempting ban as well, but given the kind of decks that Gyatso is leading, I find it interesting that, that Gyatso's Priest still exists and that MrLEGO's Druid still exists. So this is really interesting the way the ban phase panned out.
Well, I mean, that's the thing too, isn't it? Like, you build your deck lineup, in this case, so that you play both Jade Druid and Kazakis Priest, so that your opponent can't ban them both. You're going to have to face one or the other. And it's interesting that each player has chosen to face the other deck.
Yeah.
Gyatso has played a turn 3 Acolyte of Pain, for which MrLEGO has taken out with a Wrath, because you don't want to let him draw too many cards. And MrLEGO's alternative play was playing a Jade Blossom, and that would allow Gyatso to draw a lot of cards from it. Gyatso has then played his own Curious Glimmerroot and played a Powered Shield on it. Now, traditional wisdom here is that a Kazakis Priest list is an absolute dog to Jade Druid, but we know that with the introduction of Shadow Reaper Anduin, that Kazakis Priest can and will sometimes win this just on the back of drawing a lot of cards.
Absolutely.
And just burning their opponent out. Jade Druid doesn't play as much healing as it used to. What we can see of interest here in MrLEGO's hand is an Earthen Scales, which is the kind of card that you do want to play maybe to get some healing on board. The way the Kazakis Priest list will beat the Jade Druid is by getting a bunch of good-sized minions on board early on, and it looks like that's what Gyatso is doing. He's got his 3/5 Curious Glimmerroot, and he's just played Raza the Chained. He is looking like he is going to be able to threaten a fair amount of damage in the short term, and if MrLEGO wasn't playing any healing, he may actually be able to finish things off. MrLEGO, of course, has spent his 6 mana on a Jade Behemoth, getting a 2/2 Jade Golem, but it's still looking to be a bit smaller than what Gyatso is putting down, which is not traditionally what you would expect from this kind of matchup. Gyatso is playing a Gnomish Inventor and a Loot Hoarder, and of course gets to heal for free because of his Raza, and has just crushed that Jade Behemoth, leaving LEGO with just a 2/2 to Gyatso's 3/2 Curious Glimmerroot, 5/4 Raza the Chained, 2/4 Gnomish Inventor, and a 2/1 Loot Hoarder. So the board's looking a lot better for than Gyatso than MrLEGO, but MrLEGO is playing Primordial Drake, something we don't see very often in Jade Druid these days, and he just coined that out after running his 2/2 into the Raza, and that left Gyatso with just a 2/2 Gnomish Inventor, which was quite the flip of the board there. Now, it looks like Gyatso is considering playing a Nourish, which he got off the Curious Glimmerroot, but that initial push that he was having to try and get some damage in on MrLEGO's face is all but wiped off the face of the earth, and that Primordial Drake is going to be a lot harder for him to take out. So I think at this point, Gyatso is just hoping that he draws his combo online and that MrLEGO doesn't get to do Jade Druid things. given that Mr. Lego has a Nourish in hand and a Wild Growth, which I'm sure he's going to be able to use to draw even more cards, a Wrath that he's going to cycle stuff, Swipes that he's going to use to keep Gyatso stuff off the board. Looks like the Nourish has just drawn him into an Ultimate Infestation. I think it's going to be very difficult for Gyatso to stop Mr. Lego doing Jade Druid things, and I think that's probably how things are going to go. Looking at Gyatso's hand, for those of you not aware, I have to look at it upside down. I can see that looks like a Shadow Reaper Andorra in the corner, and Gyatso has already played Raza, so it does look like Gyatso has the kind of stuff he needs to be able to finish this off. It'll be interesting to see whether Mr. Lego can use the Earthen Scales to gain that advantage he needs to outpace the Anduin.
Yeah, I find it really interesting cards like Primordial Drake and Earthen Scales in the Druid deck here. Do you again think that's part of the logic behind Mr. Lego to leave the Priest in cards like Primordial Drake that are a little unconventional now and harder for Priests in particular to traditionally deal with? He maybe has crafted his deck in a particular way that is a little bit more oriented to making that matchup even better against the Priests with the Druid.
Absolutely, and I think the Earthen Scales is a nod towards that too. A lot of people would say that you play Earthen Scales to defeat aggro, but given that the way this Priest is going to beat this Druid is going to be burning a lot of hero powers on the face, that Earthen Scale may be the difference. The Primordial Drake, of course, is usually there to clear out things from an Evolved Shaman or from even Tempo Rogue these days, but it's nice to see that it's playing double duty, and of course Gyatso didn't see it coming, and he played right into it and was punished for it. Gyatso has put some damage onto that Primordial Drake and played a Doomsayer. He's hoping to get the Primordial Drake off the board. At this point, it looks like Mr. Lego would have to trade his Primordial Drake for that Priest of the Feast, but instead he's just using his swipes. One of his swipes looks like the Wrath as well, and he's choosing the 3 damage mode instead of drawing a card. I guess Mr. Lego's hand is all but overflowing at this point that he doesn't... Interesting.
It looks like he's just forgotten to kill the Doomsayer there, to be frank.
Played a Wrath, threw 3 damage on it, leaving it 3 health, and then went face with the Primordial Drake, which was not spectacular. Gyatso is now considering his turn. He's played a Lair of the Sunshard, and he's played a Tar Creeper, getting no value out of the Lair of the Sunshard, but it's fine. He also has a Prophet Velen in hand, so it looks like Gyatso has a lot of the things he needs to be able to close this game out. Now, I mentioned the Earthen Scales giving Mr. Lego some survivability against Druid here. And it's interesting enough, he's also drawn a Feral Rage. He has a lot of life gain. He's got 2 Feral Rages in hand and an Earthen Scales. So you would think he's trying to outpace the amount of damage that Shadow Reaper Anduin is going to be able to do to him. But unfortunately, he's got a Lair of the Sunshard on the other side of the table, facing protected by a Tar Creeper. So he can't use his second swipe to take it out. So instead he's cycled the Wild Growth, replacing it with a new card. He's played Spreading Plague for 2 Scarabs, and then a Doomsayer. He's going to try and take Lair of the Sunshard off the board that way. Of course, with Gyatso having a full hand, that's going to be a little tough. He's leading with a Potion of Madness to steal one of the Scarabs. He's got a Pint-sized Potion as well. Lair is going to give him a lot of spells, and you've got to assume that one of them is going to be able to take out that Doomsayer. Looks like the first spell he got was an Inner Fire. Wow, that's going to be pretty nice on your Tar Creeper, isn't it? And there's a Pint-sized Potion. Let's see what we get out of that first. And that gave us a Spirit Lash. I think at this point we have enough damage to actually kill a Shadow Form. Not the kind of card you want to play these days, because Shadow Reaper Anduin's going to be much better, but it looks like he's going to play it anyway just so we can get the damage through here. Healing first Lyra for free, then playing the Shadow Form, which will refresh his hero power. It still costs 0 thanks to Raza. It's another 2 damage. Here comes the Robe. Another 2 damage on the remaining.
He needs to speed things up here.
He does. This is looking a little dicey. There's Inner Fire on Raza. And there's a Mind Vision. You know, I think this Doomsayer might go off. Got him a Silence. Nope. There's the Silence. Can he play the Silence before the rope burns out? I can see an emote there.
He's got it in.
You gotta hope so, because why would you spend your APM on... He did get it in. Why would you spend your APM on an emote if you weren't going to get the Silence in on the Doomsayer? Goodness gracious. All right, so the Scarab went back to Mr. Lego's control, but unfortunately for Mr. Lego, Gyatso still has a 5/5 Lyra now, and it's going to continue feeding him spells. Mr. Lego cycles another Wild Growth. He now has a Swipe, which I'm guessing he's going to use to take out the Tar Creeper, and then he's probably going to try and use Feral Rage. Yep, looks like he is, to finish off the Lyra. Unfortunately for him...
Looks like the damage has been done.
I think so. Yeah, Gyatso's hand is full. And the thing about Gyatso's hand being full is that's just a bunch of ammunition for the Shadow Reaper Anduin he's undoubtedly planning on playing soon. And of course, the Prophet Velen in his hand is going to come down after the Anduin, so that means he can play... start the turn with a free 2 damage to the opponent from the hero power. He plays Velen, refreshing his hero power, which then does 4 damage to the opposing hero. And then any number of spells he does after that are going to do more and more damage. So the Velen Anduin combo is going to be a lot of damage for MrLEGO to stave off. MrLEGO is down to 21 health. He has a Feral Rage in hand. He has 2 Earthen Scales. 2 Feral Rage and 2 Earthen Scales. And he has an ultimate infestation. But I suspect Gyatso is going to be able to do a lot more damage than that. Yep. So even though there's a 1/4 Scarab on MrLEGO's side of the board, Gyatso is ignoring that and is throwing those hero powers at MrLEGO's face. He knows what's up, and it's go to the face time.
Yeah, it seems like the right thing to do here. And we see MrLEGO pick up the Nourish. Now, he did shuffle the Jade Idols into his deck the last turn, perhaps in preparation for the Ultimate Infestation turn, but I think he's realizing that given his fragile health total, that it's maybe time to start using some of these armor utilization cards, or he might not actually get a chance to use them full stop.
No, I think he'd be worried about that too. So he's nourished, he's found him a Fandral. He's played the Earthen Scales on the Fandral, giving him 4 health. Importantly, it's given a Fandral 4 attack, which is notoriously difficult attack value for Priest to deal with. I suspect Gyatso's like, that's cool, bro, you can have it, I'm still going to burn you out.
That's exactly
So what's
right.
interesting here is the Nourish did give MrLEGO a Kun the Forgotten King, which is going to give him a bunch of armor, but given the number of cards that Lyra has fed to Gyatso, and he still has 9 cards left in his library, I think he's going to have more than enough ammunition to finish off MrLEGO, even though if the Fandral happens to... Nope. Mind Vision had given Gyatso a Feral Rage of his own, so he's taking Fandral out, so it doesn't look like MrLEGO is going to get to live the dream of having Fandral in play when he plays Kun the Forgotten King and Feral Rage, which would have been pretty nice, because then he could also play the Earthen Scales on the Kun, giving him even more armor, but no. No, it looks like Gyatso saw that one coming, took Fandral off the board.
Could there have been a turn where we've played Kazakus first for a 5-mana pot? That could have done a lot of the damage that we've now kind of used by using more of our cards and more of our mana. Was there a way that we could have utilised our mana better that turn?
I think so. I mean, the fact that Gyatso passed the turn with 2 mana unspent after playing the Radiant Elemental and playing Kazakus, I mean, I think you've got to... You can enjoy getting 1 mana potions from Kazakus at this point. You've got Raza has been played, you've got Anduin in play. Those 0 mana potions with the Radiant Elemental in play is just fantastic. But he's not done that. I think at this point Gyatso knows he's very far ahead. He got a 10 mana potion off Kazakus. Transform all minions into 1/1 sheep, freeze 3 random enemy minions. I bet they didn't realize they were creating a tongue twister with that one. I'm not sure how MrLEGO is going to get out of this one, but I guess we will soon see. He's drawn a second Primordial Drake. So MrLEGO's deck, as you say, very teched. He's got both Earthen Scales, both Feral Rage, both Primordial Drake. He's still doing the Jade Druid thing, which means that in a lot of cases he should be favoured in control matchups. But he's also got a lot of anti-aggressive tools there as well, which I guess helps explain why he didn't ban the opposing Tempo Rogue, why he didn't ban the Kazakus Priest. And I suspect he's banned the opposing Jade Druid because his deck is not teched to fight the Jade Druid Mirror.
Yeah, look, I find it really interesting, especially given that Gyatso's taken the 10 mana potion here, and you've got to wonder how much utility it is to take something that's going to spend all of your mana and also lower your opponent's ceiling while you're pushing them into the ropes. It's kind of meshing between being the aggressor and trying to close out the game, but also having tools that lower your opponent's ceiling, and perhaps a little bit of confusion or maybe a little bit of inexperience with the deck. Because I believe if the Kazakus was sequenced a bit differently and we still had the Radiant Elemental, I think by this turn we actually could have killed Lego, given what's going on.
So I just had a bit of a spit take there because I was drinking water and saw that Gyatso played a Mind Games, which he got off Lyra, of course, which pulled a Yogg-Saron out of MrLEGO's deck. And then MrLEGO drew Yogg-Saron, so his deck is definitely spicy. I agree that taking the 10 mana potion was not what you really want to do with Kazakus there, but maybe what Gyatso is thinking is like, I don't even need the potion right now. This potion is what I have in case things spiral out of control. And you know what can cause things to spiral out of control? Yogg-Saron. So it's entirely possible, and it doesn't look like that MrLEGO is planning on playing Yogg this turn. He's instead playing and cycling his Wild Growth. And he's setting up to have Yogg be his Hail Mary in the next couple of turns.
Yeah.
He's going to play it for as many spells as possible, and that's where that 10 mana potion from Gyatso might be what he needs. Could be interesting. We'll soon see. We've got a 4/4 Jade Idol from MrLEGO, and we've got his Rogue, and we've got 7 mana left. Let's see what he does with the rest of it. Looks like some more Jade Idols and things. We'll see what Gyatso does. I think we might be seeing probably a flurry of spells trying to remove some minions, and then we're probably going to see Yogg-Saron from MrLEGO the turn after. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, that will be. I wonder, what combination of spells can really stop the inevitability of Gyatso here? It'll be interesting. Can you think of anything that comes to mind?
No. I can't think of how you would stop Gyatso at this point, outside of the Yogg-Saron, but it looks like Gyatso is playing his Prophet Velen. He's playing a Shadowwood Pain on the Tar Creeper. And he went face with the Yogg-Saron without actually winning. So this is probably I want to say very good for very good for MrLEGO. MrLEGO's about to trade his 5/5 Golem into Velen, and then probably his 4/4 Golem into Yogg-Saron, and then is probably going to play the Primordial Drake.
Yeah.
I'm guessing maybe Jade Idol and Earthen Scales on the Jade Idol just to try and gain enough health. MrLEGO's down.
I believe that would be the play.
Yeah, MrLEGO's down to 10 life, which means it won't take very many hero powers from Gyatso to finish him, especially if Velen's in play. So the Velen needs to leave play now, as far as he's concerned. I guess the alternative is trading both Jade Golems into Velen and then playing the Jade Behemoth and then the Jade Idol. That gives you more armor out of the Earthen Scales. It takes Velen off the board, and then... Nope, he's going with the Primordial Drake play instead. No, you can't
probably
fault
safe,
that.
especially because we have seen the Master Spell that is being mained by Gyatso as well, but I don't believe it's being played yet as well, so maybe that's what's in the back of his mind when he's not using Jade Behemoth.
It's not currently in Gyatso's hand, but Gyatso has 7 cards left in his library, so it could easily be something that's coming up. MrLEGO chose
loaded a mana there.
Drake and didn't play the Jade Idol, so it's interesting there.
It's fair to say both players are a little bit shaky this game. I find really interesting because it's quite a common matchup.
I think so too. And maybe it's the hour of the day that we've started on them, starting at midday Australian Eastern Time. Myself, I was up quite early this morning because I have a 4-year-old, and that's just what happens. But I know that back in the day when I was a young gamer as well, sleeping in and playing late was just kind of what you did. So maybe these guys are still rubbing sleep from their eyes and haven't quite had enough coffees yet. Looks like there's a flurry of spells coming out of Gyatso there. He's put MrLEGO down to 7 health and has an Elise the Trailblazer in play. So if there was any risk that you thought Gyatso was going to run out of ammunition for his Anduin, he's just shuffled a pack into his deck. All right, here it comes.
MrLEGO, the Hail Mary.
He's bounced over the Yogg-Saron and then bounced over Curator. Just in case you were worried, Curator getting you Dragon. And here it is, Yogg-Saron. All right, let's see if we can keep up with the spells. We see a Shadow Form. Well, you've lost your armor there. We see a Vanish.
And that's the game.
So not only did he just lose his hero power, which could give him some mana, but between you and me, it was never going to be enough. And then vanished Yogg-Saron back to his hand, putting Elise the Trailblazer back into Gyatso's hand. Gyatso is hero powered, playing Elise the Trailblazer again, putting more packs into his deck, and his MrLEGO's down to 3. 1 health. I'm pretty sure this game is over for MrLEGO. That's a bit unfortunate.
I think it's important for Gyatso to have picked up a win early on in this series with the Priest as well, especially considering LEGO's lineup is perhaps tailored towards beating that Priest.
Yeah, I think so too. What's interesting here, of course, is that Gyatso can't play as Priest anymore, and MrLEGO can still play his Jade Druid. Now, what did we see? We saw double Earthen Scales, we saw double Feral Rage, we saw double Primordial Drake, we saw Yogg-Saron, we saw a Curator there. He didn't play it, but it was in his hand.
As well.
Was there 2 Galactic Crawler? I only saw the one in his hand. Maybe I wasn't paying enough attention, but clearly he's taking a lot there. I suspect he's not playing Jade Spirit. What else would he not be playing? I don't know. That's taking up a lot of the spaces in the deck, and I think you have to cut Jade Spirit from the list if you're running that many tech cards. Interesting Jade Druid list from MrLEGO indeed. So this is interesting. The next game, MrLEGO has queued up a Hunter deck, and Gyatso has queued up a Mage deck.
Now, do you assume that the Mage deck is Quest Mage, especially seeing that the Druid was left in?
I think so.
I cannot see Gyatso's hand, so I'm not too sure.
I think that would be the assumption you'd make, and looking at his hand, I'd say that we were wrong. It looks like we didn't see a quest in Gyatso's opening hand, and he's ended up with a couple of Doomsayers, a Frost Nova, a Blizzard, and a Frostbolt. We're not looking at Khazagis Mage. I'd say we're looking straight up Freeze Mage there. And there's a Medivh's Valet. I guess Freeze Mage is not very good against Priest, which is why I suspect Gyatso has banned Priest, and why he's gone with Freeze Mage. It's traditionally not good against Jade Druid, because Jade Druid runs a lot of armor game. Jade Druid doesn't run as much armor game these days, so that helps. But as we just saw, MrLEGO's version does have all the Earthen Scales and the Feral Rages, so that's not a good sign for Gyatso's Quest Mage. Now, we're not talking about Jade Druid for MrLEGO this time, though. He's queued up his Hybrid Hunter, and he's got down a Bear Shark, and he's just played an Alley Cat, and he's just going face past this Medivh's Valet. This is the kind of deck that can beat Freeze Mage as well. So it looks like Gyatso's Freeze Mage, unless it draws a lot better in the near future, might be facing a lot of damage from MrLEGO. So Gyatso has chosen to play a Doomsayer and Hero Power down one of the Alley Cats as opposed to coining out a Frost Nova. And then the Medivh's Valet took out the other cat. So that's left MrLEGO with the Bear Shark free to attack that Doomsayer, and as long as there's some additional damage in his hand to be able to take it out, then he will be able to stop that Doomsayer going off. There's a few options in MrLEGO's hand. He could Animal Companion and hope that he gets Huffer. Trust me, that's not the play you want to do.
No,
he could
not.
Trust me, that's not the play you want to do. He could Houndmaster. He's probably just going to play the Kill command. I can see him playing the... It looks like he wants to play the Unleash the Hounds.
I'm not sure what that would achieve. Barring some extra damage.
He's just trying to try. He's mousing over the cards just to make us go, what's going on? Who knows?
Or is he just looking to try and get that additional face damage in? Proportion of the damage over the course of the game.
Maybe he's trying to force the face damage in. So there's the Unleash the Hounds for 2. Then he's going face with the Bear Shark and the 2 Hounds, and then a Hero Power, I'm guessing, because I guess you wouldn't play a Galactic Crawler in. And that puts Gyatso down to 14 health. Now, we know that the secret is not a ice barrier, so we're guessing that it's definitely an ice block. And that means, I guess, MrLEGO is thinking that he wants to get that ice block popped before Gyatso can get to the point where he can both draw and play Alexstrasza, or, in the case may be, it looks like Gyatso has drawn a Jaina, the Frostlich Jaina, which is not something I think you traditionally see in Freeze Mage, but maybe we're looking more at a Control Mage. Either way, MrLEGO knows that he wants the game out before Frostlich Jaina can come down, and maybe going face that turn was what he wanted to do.
Yeah, and I think Lego is recognizing as long as he can click that steady shot button as many turns as possible, it's going to put him closer to that goal of, again, beating the turn 9 power plays, things like Frostlich King Jaina, things like Alexstrasza. And I think there was a turn there where Lego actually chose to float a mana instead of playing an Animal Companion just so he could Hero Power. I think that's just him wanting to do as much damage as possible.
And I think the reason for that is the Mage doesn't have a lot of healing. Outside of Frostlich Jaina and maybe Alexstrasza, the Mage cannot heal itself very well. And therefore, it's going to have to expend cards staying alive, which means that Hero Power, pressuring the opponent's life total, becomes a source of value and card advantage for MrLEGO as well. Not actual full-on card advantage, but maybe like a virtual card advantage. So MrLEGO has rebuilt his board with a Galactic Crawler and a Firefly and a Flame Elemental, and has hero-powered Gyatso down to 10 life. Gyatso's using Blizzard to try and clean up some of that and keep the damage off his face. The important point we're looking at here is that Gyatso had 7 mana that turn, has kept his coin, and will be able to coin out Frostlich Jaina next turn if he wants. And that is the key turning point in this. If he can get Frostlich Jaina down before his Ice Block is popped, then MrLEGO is going to have to contend with the Water Elementals, and it's going to be kind of tough for him to come back with, because he can't contend with the Water Elementals very easily without getting into combat with them. Getting into combat with them will heal Gyatso. That's exactly the position he wants to be in. Looks like MrLEGO is just going face. He's played Animal Companion, getting Leok, and he's done a Hero Power, and then he's also done a Kill Command, putting Gyatso down to 3 health. Unfortunately, that hasn't popped the Ice Block, and Gyatso is going to be, yep, there's the coin, and there's Frostlich Jaina. So I think even though Gyatso can probably pop that Ice Block this turn, he's not going to be able to take out the Water Elemental at the same time. So he draws a Deadly Shot off top. No, he did not. And it's going to mean that Gyatso is going to be able to heal in the near future. The interesting thing here is there's a Galactic Crawler with 1 health, which means it could be pretty dangerous to have around with that hero power now, because that'll just give Gyatso more water elementals. MrLEGO is considering playing his Houndmaster on the Leok, but I'm guessing he might well want to put it on the Galaka Crawler. Actually, I don't know that he can win either way with that. Yeah, it looks like he's Houndmastered the Galaka Crawler, allowing him to go face for 5, and then face for 2 with Leok, and then hero power to pop the ice block. But either way, the water elemental is going to be able to trade with things. If he couldn't hero power the Galaka Crawler for 1 damage, he is probably going to be able to walk that water elemental into the Leok and then finish it off for 1 damage to get another hero. So here's an interesting thing. I talked about how Frostlich Jaina was going to be the end game for Gyatso. MrLEGO has popped the ice block. Gyatso is at 1 health. Gyatso has 1 water elemental in play, which means he can heal for 3 damage this turn. Is that actually going to be enough? MrLEGO has a 5/3 Houndmaster, a 5/3 Galaka Crawler, and a 2/4 Leok, and a 3/2 Scavenging Hyena. So he could actually attack back for more than Gyatso could heal. Luckily for Gyatso, he's got a Blizzard, which has taken out the Scavenging Hyena, has damaged a lot of things, allowing him to finish something off with a hero power and getting him another water elemental. So the problem here, of course, is
unleash the hounds and hero power.
Exactly. The water elemental did freeze MrLEGO, so he can't use the Eaglehorn bow, but just the unleash the hounds with Leo can play is enough to be able to finish Gyatso off. So that's very close. It looked like that Gyatso was going to be able to stabilize with this, but MrLEGO correctly went face early and often, and I guess he must have played this matchup before, realized that even though the Frostlich Jaina is going to give those water elementals lifesteal, that he can keep pushing damage, and there would have to be another ice block there before, or Alex Raza before Gyatso could actually truly stabilize.
Yeah, it was good recognition again by LEGO of knowing what he's coming up against, weaving in that hero power as much as possible, and just trying to end the game. Before those vital turns. I mean, I think what was needed for the Major to come back in the game was perhaps something like Baron Geddon or Alex Straza post ice block getting procced, but yeah, short of that, the Hunter was just putting on way too much pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where, I mean, I've played Mage enough to know that sometimes you can control the board and then just Alex Straza your own face to heal yourself out of range at the end of the game, and they can't win. But I've also played it enough to know that sometimes the Hunter can just put on enough pressure to finish you off. So it looks like Gyatso has queued his Mage again, and this time he's queued it up against MrLEGO's Druid. Now, historically, this has been a bad matchup for the Mage, but between Frostlich Jaina, who actually gives you a lot of value in the late game with you, I think a lot of us didn't expect her to give you that much value. On top of the fact that Gyatso has managed to keep a Skulking Geist in his opening hand, means you can stop Jade Druid getting that late game value as much as well.
Yeah.
You just have to outlast what Jades they can get outside of the idols. And on top of that, of course, he's going to be able to take out the Earthen Scales as well. But we've got to get to the point in the game where that matters. Right now, Gyatso has played himself a Arcanologist, getting an Ice Barrier, and MrLEGO has done the Dream Druid opening and playing a Wild Growth on turn 2.
Yeah, so how do you fancy the Fandral on curve here with the potential of Nourish on 5?
I like it. I like it a lot. So historically, you'd be thinking that Fandral is going to die to a Frostbolt or a Fireball, or anything like that. And it looks like that Gyatso has had the Frostbolt for it. But Control Mage these days tends not to play the Fireballs as much. They tend to play things like Polymorph instead. And the Polymorph is not something to keep in their opening hand, which means Fandral might actually survive. Now, Fandral's really, really important in the Jade Druid mirror. Not as important in the Jade Druid versus the Control Mage mirror. So you can just run it out in turn 4. They have an answer for it. They have an answer for it. You're going to play Nourish on turn 5 anyway. They don't have an answer for it. Nourish with Fandral in play is incredible.
So we're seeing the Nourish here for card draw rather than ramp. What do you make of that? I would have actually thought that resource-wise that LEGO was travelling okay and could have used maybe the mana ramp. What do you make of that?
I do agree. So the interesting thing here is MrLEGO probably, he's an experienced man, he's seen the world, seen Austin at least. He probably realizes that his opponent is going to be running Skulking Geist somewhere in the deck. His opponent didn't ban Jade Druid. Got to be assuming there's a Skulking Geist there, which means that at some point he's probably going to run out of cards. He also has a handful of resources. As you say, playing Nourish to gain mana is going to be the kind of thing he might want to do to get up to the point where he can start playing out the cards in his hand, and he starts drawing Ultimate Infestations off the top. He can afford to play those. If you draw cards with the Nourish there, you make it harder to play Ultimate Infestation, A, because your hand is full, B, because you're going to run out of the cards in your library. Yeah. I don't know that I necessarily would have drawn cards there. That said, Mr. Lego's hand is all of the anti-creature cards, anti-minion cards, sorry. So maybe he's just trying to find something that he can finish off the game with a little better. Gyatso, of course, has played turn 6 Skulking Geist. So the Jade Idols are out of Mr. Lego's deck. The Earthen Scales are out of his deck. Let's see if it got anything else. Nope, just all those 4 cards. It's nice. You mouse over the Skulking Geist, you can see the cards that are removed in the history down the side there. So all Gyatso needs to do here is stall the boards of Jades that will turn up. We know, well, sorry, we don't know. We haven't seen the deck lists. I made the assumption, and Chumi didn't contradict me, that the Jade Spirits are not actually in Mr. Lego's deck. So now that the Skulking Geist has taken out the Jade Idols, Mr. Lego is going to struggle to make much of a threatening board here.
Yeah, absolutely. And to make matters worse, the Skulking Geist has actually hit an additional 2 cards in the Earthen Scales, just putting Lego further towards fatigue. I mean, the other piece of this puzzle now is whether Gyatso can pick up Frost Lich King Jaina in due time. And if he's able to do that with taking out the inevitability of Mr. Lego being able to shuffle, tons of Jades into his deck, I think he might be in a fantastic spot.
So I'm guessing you can't see Gyatso's hand right now.
No,
that's all right. Over on the left we have a Polymorph. So that was an answer that was available for Fandral. Then we've got a Flame Strike. That's going to be an answer if the board goes wide. We've got 2 Blizzards, Frost Lich Jaina, and the Medivh that he just played. And he's just drawing Officer on for the turn. So Gyatso is going big now. He can play a big spell each turn for a while, and it's going to be nasty. Medivh looks like Frost Lich Jaina is just coming down on 9. So the Ice Block has not been popped. Gyatso's life total is nice and high. It's 25 plus an extra 5 armor now. And there's a Water Elemental. Medivh has just eaten a Jade Behemoth, leaving a 2/2 Jade Golem and a 2/3 Galactic Crawler. I'm not a betting man, I have to admit, but I would say that Mr. Lego is in a bit of trouble here. He's traded his Jade Golem into the into the Medivh, and his Primordial Drake is finishing off Medivh. He's having to hero power and trade his Galactic Crawler into the Water Elemental. It's putting Gyatso up to 35 health. And we know that Mr. Lego has a 4/8 on the board, but Gyatso still has all the health in the world. There's a Polymorph. Yeah. That Polymorph is going to turn into a 1/1 that he's going to shoot with the hero power to turn it into a Water Elemental. There's just going to be too much value from Gyatso's hero power now against Mr. Lego's Medivh hero power. Not Medivh, Malfurion hero power. Yeah. I think Mr. Lego is going to be climbing uphill the hard way to try and finish this one off. And as you say, that Skulking Geist taking out the Earthen Scales has just put Mr. Lego that much closer to fatigue, something that he facilitated himself by playing Nourish to draw cards.
Yeah, and I think, as you've been pointing out, the emission of Jade Spirit here is really going to come back to haunt him as well. The Jade Idols are gone, and 2 more sources of Jade cards are gone. I don't see how there will be enough pressure, given that Lich King Jaina is online so early. There will be enough pressure to actually close out the game. I just don't see it. Again, I'm not a betting man myself either, but this one's all but over.
Yeah, so Mr. Lego is making a play to get the board back. He Spreading Plague for 3 minions and then a Doomsayer. But Gyatso just played a Flame Strike off the top, took all the Scarabs out of the way, and then ate the Doomsayer. Atish from Medivh has given Gyatso a Hogger Doom of Elwyn, along with a Wicked Witch Doctor. The Wicked Witch Doctor has given him a Taunt Totem. It's looking really good for Gyatso this game. My daughter has just bought me a lovely flower. Anyone watching the stream can see the flower there. Very nice.
It's a nice colour.
Thank you, honey. Thank you very much, honey. So, back to the game. We can see Mr. Lego has a bunch of cards in hand, all of which are good at handling opposing small minions. Unfortunately, Gyatso has not got opposing small minions. He's got opposing large minions. And there's a Blizzard from Gyatso, which is just going to give him yet another big minion out of the Atish. Well, luckily it did. The Wicked Witch Doctor made another Taunt Totem. Atish gave him an Argent Commander. That's the 4/2 Charged Divine Shield. Mr. Lego is probably feeling a little bit sheepish about this. The second Primordial Drake has fallen to Jaina's hero power, which has given him yet another Water Elemental. Gyatso's still on 35 health. Mr. Lego is falling to 14. His face is constantly frozen. He can play swipes to take things down. He's got 2 swipes in hand. it's still not looking pretty for him.
No, I think we're looking ahead to Game 5. You don't happen to know what the Gyatso's last deck is, do you?
I don't know. So what we've seen from him so far, no, we've seen Control Mage, we've seen Priest, and we've seen Rogue.
Mm-hmm.
So we're guessing, I guess, that Gyatso's last deck was Druid and it was banned. Gyatso won Game 1 with Rogue, so he can't play it again. So he's got to play his... No, he won with Priest.
Oh, so that means it's 2-2 in the series.
Gyatso's about
That's
to win.
just me miscounting. Yes. Yeah, Gyatso's about to take out the series. That would make perfect sense why we can't track the last deck, because it's got no win.
And there's the Alexstrasza. The Alexstrasza healing MrLEGO from 14 to 15 and still allowing him to attack. MrLEGO's like, oh no. Yep, he's gaining attack with his Feral Rage. No, health. He's gaining health. That makes sense. He's gaining health with his Feral Rage. And then he's going to Wrath, I guess, the Knoll that came out of Hogger. Because removing that Knoll means that Gyatso can't turn it into a Water Elemental. MrLEGO's up to 26 health when you count all his armor. There's 3 more, but 29 health, but he's still facing down an 8-8 Alexstrasza. At least 1 3-4 Water Elemental. MrLEGO's got 4 cards left in his library. At least one of them is the Ultimate Infestation in hand, and probably another one in the library. He can't play those without fatiguing himself very heavily. There's a Nourish, which won't do anything. I think MrLEGO's deck in hand is full of a lot of blanks at this point. It's not looking pretty at all.
Yeah, it looks like this is I guess, a deck more targeted at the longevity games and having more tools to deal with aggro matchups. But again, when you have the Jaina, when you can get the 2 pieces to the puzzle together, and that's an early Geist alongside early Lich King Jaina, and then you have the attack team, you can run away with these games. I really like the deck.
Absolutely, I do too. I think it's very interesting. Gyatso's lineup, I think, is very good against MrLEGO's. MrLEGO is clearly taking his Jade Druid to beat aggro. He's played his Tempo Rogue as Elemental, so it's good to go against aggro. We're guessing that his other deck that was banned was Priest, probably pretty reasonable against aggro. He's expecting an aggro lineup, which isn't unreasonable for a community cup like this one. And it looks like he's run up against a control matchup, which is just not good for him. Gyatso's been able to leave out MrLEGO's Jade Druid, maybe not knowing, but he's finding out the hard way that it's not a Jade Druid that's particularly well suited for taking this matchup. Once you've taken out those Jade Spirits from your deck, and there it is, Gyatso's closed out the game. Once you've taken the Jade Spirit out of your deck, that Skulking Geist is really nasty against Jade Druid. And then when the rest of MrLEGO's cards are targeting aggro lineups, it's not great for him.
The risk